The Queensberry viewers haven't seen enough of it.
God, stop it.
Yeah. Well, I'm joined by the one and only Gareth A.Davies. How are you today, sir?
Very well. Great to be here at BT Sport with you, Dev, and on a day when maybe it's a historic day with the signing of Moses Itauma by Francis Warren as manager and Frank Warren and George Warren as promoters. It's a bit of a Warren fest, isn't it? But it's an Itauma fest and a Warren fest. Great to be here. Great to be starting the year. We're finally at a press conference. 2022's over. Really want to crack on with 2023. So optimistic about the year.
And what a great way to start the year with a young heavyweight turning over January 28th, 18 years old, done it all as an amateur. How excited about this guy are you?
Well, I mean, I don't really know an enormous amount about him. I'm only going on what people have said about him. He's obviously got an extraordinary amateur pedigree. It's almost like a marvel to look at him and think that this is someone who's so mature at 18. I mean, I go back in the day with Frank when Kevin Mitchell had been hassling Kevin Mitchell, the lightweight, super featherweight, who's probably in his 40s now, and he'd been coming to the boxing writers' dinner every year from about the age of 13 to meet Frank Warren, say, sign me at 18. I remember him doing that. I've got a feeling that maybe Dennis McCann might have signed at 18.
Well, he was always a big Box Nation fan, always watched Frank. Him and his dad together had the subscription, so yeah, I think it was the same sort.
Yeah, and so, but with a heavyweight, when he's 18, you can still see him. Moses, a huge man, quite puppyish still. Obviously, his brother Carol is overseeing him. I think he's, 5 years older, his brother? 4 years older. Only 4 years older. And as he said today at the press conference, fantastic. So I'm getting him out of bed to run in the morning. You need that, and it's beautiful that he's got his elder brother who's kind of driving him a little bit. I mean, it's fantastic. He set himself this target of 20 years, 4 months and 22 days, which is obviously that legendary age that Mike Tyson became heavyweight champion of the world, and soon afterwards, of course, he was undisputed champion. That's a massive, massive target. But everyone who is speaking about him behind the scenes, who he's sparred with, who he's been around, has said that he's something special, this kid. You know, it's very, very early days. He's proven a lot in the amateurs. It's not worth staying in the amateurs, in my view, to do the Olympics. We may not have the amateur boxing in the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028, which I imagine was when he would have got in, potentially, of course, in Paris next year. Yeah, it's very exciting, and I'm fascinated to dig narrow and deep into the background of this guy, why he's doing it. He started at 9. Yeah, it's nice to be here. If he wins that world title, before, I think you said it to me earlier, you've done the computations, May 2025.
Yeah, May, I think it's like the 22nd of May 2025. He has to win it by then to break the record.
Yeah, if he does it, brilliant. Fantastic.
Is it realistic? Is that possible in today's boxing landscape? You're nodding your head. Tell us how. How can it be done?
Well, I mean, that current group of fighters are in their mid-30s now. Tyson Fury, Joe Joyce even older than that, Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua, they're all 34, 35. They'll all be coming to the end. They won't want to fight anymore. I mean, he might still fight Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora. You never know, they might be knocking around still. Realistically, he said he's going to fight 8 fights this year, 8 fights next year. And then, you know, people are fighting for world titles now at... You know, Anthony Joshua fought in his 16th fight, didn't he? So that's realistic. It's how they graduate him, how, you know, Frank's done this a million times, Frank Warren, you know, major impresario in these kind of things. So it's all about how he develops physically, how his tensile strength develops, how he loses that tiny bit of puppy fat you can still see in him as a teenager, and whether he can carry those occasions. He obviously makes his debut on the Yarde and Beterbiev, or Beterbiev and Yarde undercard. It's going to be an amazing moment for him as a young man, and it's a pleasure to be here to witness this today and to be there on the 28th.
Well, let's talk about the 28th. As you alluded to, the main event, Beterbiev against Yarde, the unified light heavyweight titles on the line. Give us your sort of thoughts heading into this fight, a big champion coming over to these shores.
Yeah, well, I think that's amazing, and it's indicative of how well boxing's supported in this country at the moment, how the fans are, how women's boxing grew exponentially last year, how there's massive opportunities here. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me I'm throwing forward here, but it wouldn't surprise me if Beterbiev does win against Yarde. It wouldn't surprise me to see Beterbiev and Bivol take place here. It could take place here as viably, say at the O2, with 20,000 fans, as it could in Las Vegas, in my view. That's how big it is here. I think Frank Warren's pulled another rabbit out of the hat. He's not a magician, he's a boxing promoter, but you get my drift, that he's... I think getting Beterbiev over here gives Anthony Yarde huge advantages. Tractor City a few years ago for Anthony Yarde was a tough fight against Sergei Kovalev. I think he should have won it on the night. I think he held a little bit too much back that night. Spoke to Anthony at the weekend. You're asking me for how I see the fight, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, what does he need to do to win? And can you see that he's a different fighter to the Kovalev fight, and he's learned? You've spoken to him since that. It feels like he's got a different energy about him to the guy back then, but you tell me.
Well, look, he's come on. He's lost to Lyndon Arthur. He's won back against Lyndon Arthur. He's learnt how to come back from losses. I think he's more confident in the style he has. He's ostensibly a power guy, isn't he? You know, and he's got a great chin, incredible physique. I don't think he'll fade in a fight, but I mean, Anthony won't thank me for this, but I do see Beterbiev as the favourite, and I'm picking Beterbiev. I want Anthony to win. I'd love him to win. He's a phenomenal person, character, amazing background. I love his backstory, how he kind of eschewed being involved in any gangs or anything like that, growing up in that kind of area, that he grew up in northeast London, and he's a great character, you know, and he's a great example in British boxing. I think the tough thing for him in this fight, unless he can get to Beterbiev, yes, everyone says we saw him down against Callum Johnson. He's got to get on him, I think, in the first third of the fight and sustain that. I don't know if he wins on points. I think Beterbiev wins on points in a grueling duel, in my view. I think Anthony needs a stoppage in this fight. But he needs to produce definitely his best performance, definitely create a lot of pressure, not lose sight of the fact that Beterbiev is 38 going on 39, and put him under real pressure. Whether that depletes him during the fight, I don't know. Beterbiev is the typical Eastern European fighter. When I spoke to Anthony at the weekend on Talk Sports, Anthony was saying that he was actually talking Beterbiev up and saying that his skills are very good. I think he's quite a simple fighter, though. I think Anthony's got to stop him 7, 8, 9 rounds and get him in a war with him. Because I think he will tire late in the fight, and I think it will become Beterbiev's fight the longer it goes. And I think Beterbiev either by late stoppage or points win, but I'd love Anthony to win.
Well, tell us, if Anthony Yarde does win, if he does pull off the upset, because he is the underdog here, how much of an achievement is that? How big of an upset is it? And what a statement is that from Anthony Yarde?
Huge. I think Beterbiev is one of the great champions out there right now. Was it 18 wins, 18 knockouts, brilliant amateur pedigree. Just doesn't have the following, really. I mean, it's the same as Dmitry Bivol, who holds the other light heavyweight belts. It's a massive achievement, and if it's a fantastic fight over 12 rounds, I think it would make sense to fight a second time if they can. But maybe he'll want to go for the undisputed title. Maybe he'll want to fight Joshua Buatsi. Maybe there's all kinds of openings there for Anthony, and he's in one of the two of the best champions in the world, both who belong in the top 6 pound for pound for me are the two Russians, Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, the light heavyweights. So all our light heavyweights, and we've got about 6 or 7 very good ones. Very good ones. You know, they've got their work cut out. I think Anthony Yarde and Joshua Buatsi have the opportunity this year to prove that they're not just world class but elite class if they get the Bivol and Beterbiev fights. But this is an elite level fight for Anthony Yarde on the 28th of January at Wembley. And if he wins it, he's proven himself that he's elite.
Perfect. Lovely speaking to you, Gareth. And yeah, thanks, and enjoy the rest of the presser here.
Thank you very much. Cheers Dev.
and Yarde puts him down with a chopping right hand. Beterbiev!
When I beat someone like Beterbiev, it just feels better.
The beast from the east, Yarde!
ARTUR BETERBIEV, the 3-bout world champion at light heavyweight.
The only world champion in boxing with a 100% knockout ratio.
He was offered $1 million to step aside and he refused to take it.
It's this guy got no fear in his body. I actually haven't, because I don't care what no one thinks.